Diogo Guerner. I'm the CEO and founder of Naviu. We are a B2B product studio based in Berlin, in Germany. We're currently a team of 7 people. And we, as an agency, we are an hybrid. So we work with NoCode and code technologies. So in NoCode, we work with Bubble, WeWeb, Xano, AppFarm, Airtable, and some others. And with code, we work with React, Django, and also Node.js.
What were the beginnings of your agency like, and why did you opt for NoCode?
So the agency was actually initiated by my co-founder. He was a developer working on code projects for some clients, and then he started building a team. So for the initial period of the agency was just doing coding projects. But then we started seeing that, okay, for some use cases and specific clients, they needed something, they needed products to be delivered faster, and they didn't have requirements for, to have such, how can I say, customizable technology, let's say. So we started looking into NoCode, and that was actually the time that we met each other, because I was starting a startup, and I was using NoCode, Bubble in this case. So we started cooperating, and then we decided to work together. So I joined the agency, and that's why we started working with NoCode, because we felt like, okay, there's use cases in the market that don't need fully coded solution, and we just went ahead and added NoCode to our tech stack.
It's super interesting because you've mentioned that you've been a startup founder. So before launching the agency, you've been running your own startup, right?
How the Germans say, naja. So I didn't actually end up founding the startup or incorporating. I always had a big passion for tech. So I always had I'm one of those people that has before a notebook, but now on Notion, I have a thing that says business ideas, and I'm always putting new ideas there. And and one of them, it was to create a marketplace. And I was already, working a lot on it in terms of like, what would it be, creating a business plan and stuff. And I thought, okay, to actually develop this, I'm going to have to go and get money from, I don't know, investors or something. And that's when I found NoCode, and I was like, oh, actually, you can actually build it. So I started doing that. And in the process, I kind of left the idea of the startup and actually, started growing Naviu. I think it's quite a common phenomenon for people that have agencies now. But I've been connected to the startup world in the past, but was never a founder of one, but had a lot of ideas, let's say.
Any challenges with NoCode, because you are doing both code and NoCode? How about some challenges you encountered with NoCode?
So the challenges with NoCode, I think NoCode should be seen as this thing of code and NoCode. Actually, the fact that we call it NoCode kind of puts it in opposition to code, when I feel it shouldn't be like that. So NoCode should be part of the tech stack, right? Even with code solutions, right? We are in an age that there's a lot of use of microservices, right? So a lot of things connect and communicate with one another. So the way we see it is, NoCode or NoCode tools are another piece of the tech stack that have their specific use cases, and of course advantages and disadvantages, like you have with code, right? When you're building a software, if it's fully coded, you also need to think about which microservices to use and how to architect the whole thing. So that's our philosophy in terms of NoCode. So of course there's things with NoCode that, so usually NoCode, the easier a tool is to use, the more limitation it will have. So that's what we see. When we pick up a tool, we need to really make sure that we understand the use case of the client, we understand where they want to go with their product. Okay, so and then we think about the tools in a sense of like, what is going to work today and what should work in the near future, right? And we build we select the tech stack, and then we build the applications with that in mind. So of course there's like anything, there's disadvantages with no code. There's a lot of advantages as well. We just think it's our philosophy is let's use the things in the right moment and what can I say? Use the advantages that they give the best and be mindful that the disadvantages are there. And at some point we might need to change things, but I feel that's life, right? We keep on evolving and moving forward. And when the challenges arise, we iterate, and that's our approach.
Going back to agency, can you describe name and some significant milestones you've reached so far? Any of them?
Yes. So one of the big milestones was that actually one company that we work with, they recently got 1.8 million euros in funding. So we were super happy. Like a lot of times you work with young companies that they have this dream and this dream of growing a startup, and we know how difficult it is, especially in uh, this last year. So we were very happy to see that, okay, something that we've built actually allowed our client to get to that milestone. So that was great. In terms of internal milestone of the company, of course, as you build an agency, you need to build processes. And every day, at least our philosophy is that we always need to learn with the successes and with the mistakes, and always keep on improving our delivery. So we're very happy that nowadays we usually at the end of the project we give a questionnaire to the client so they can rate us, and we've been having 4 points and above out of 5 for every project we've been doing. So I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy with the internal team, with the fact that we've been able to really, with time, to create a solid process, to create a good way of working, that now is paying off with the clients being happy. So I think that's and another milestone maybe is like, we've been doing this for 2 years and we are still alive and going. So everyone says it's very hard to build up companies. I agree. And I'm happy that we're moving forward and things are working. In terms of the projects we have developed, we're quite proud. As I mentioned before, we had this company that got the funding. It was actually a very interesting project because and it's a thing that we've been doing a lot. That is companies that have very complex technology on the back end, but the front end is not that complex. So we worked with this company that they worked with blockchain technology on the back end, and then the front end was mainly tables, forms, some graphics. So it wasn't very complex on the front end, and it was the first time that we worked with this combination, and we really liked it and the client as well, because basically they could focus on the core of the value that their application was providing by developing the backend and having all the internal team focused on the backend, and then having us creating the front end in a very, how can I say, agile, iterative manner, where every week there's new things to be added, new things to change, but it's so fast. And their clients gave some feedback, and then we could change things like design or functionality so fast that like they just managed to really fast track their product to market fit, because they did this combination. In terms of showcasing a project, I have here an application that I can show. So here we're seeing an application called Stewardly. This is something that we've been working a lot with our clients. So as I said in the beginning, we are a B2B product studio. So we go from the product strategy, design, and development for our clients, but we're just focused on B2B applications. So one of the use cases that we get a lot is companies that come to us and say, hey, I have an Excel sheet that I use to perform some sort of process with my clients, and that they want to do it in a more streamlined and a more, let's say, productized way. So this company was interesting because they do management of assets for families that have a lot of funds to invest, and they used to do everything with Excel. So everything was very manual, and they decided to create a platform. So in this platform, we moved away from the Excel, but we followed a lot of the same structure. So As you come here, you can create new assets, right? You can create, let's say, an investment. And then inside that investment, you can create what we call events. So events can be the investment of capital, the valuation of that capital. It can be an income. So the way it works is you create an asset, you come here, you add an event to that asset. The event has different event types. So you can choose, and then you can add that and also split it by different entities within, as I said, it's a family business that can have different people within this fund. So once you do that, then you can see all the summary of that asset within this dashboard, within this tab. So you see the capital division between people, you see all the details of that asset, but more importantly, you can see an overview. So you can see all the stats of this investment in a centralized way with graphics to accompany your analysis. This is test data, so yeah, some things are not showing, but in reality, more things will show. So this is on the asset level. Then you can see on the portfolio overview, you can also see all the metrics regarding the portfolio. So basically, it's the combination of all the assets. Why do I think this is a good showcase of an application in this regard? Is because I really think NoCode is great for the product is not launching a new type of technology, is not making anything technologically that it hasn't been done before. It's a lot about tables, forms, filling data, and then the data being represented in a certain way. So this is what I feel no-code technologies are awesome for, because yeah, you can build something that works really well. This is super scalable with no-code because you're not trying to push any boundaries in terms of technology. It's actually using already existing technology and just applying it for a different purpose. So I think it's a good example.
So from your perspective, how has no-code changed the way we create software? Let's compare it to traditional software development.
Okay. So actually, to answer this question, better to think about what hasn't changed. So the product strategy, understanding how to build a good product, how to design it, how to build it technically, how to structure a database, how to structure a backend, how the front end should work. Like all of those things are still important with no code. And so I would say the basis of software development need to be there. What I think really changes is because more things can be done just by one person. Like in a no-code project, you can have just one person, right? If the person has understanding of product, knows how to design applications, and can develop with no-code tools, there's a lot of people that are like alone. They can build a platform from A to Z, which I know with code also exists, but I think in no-code is more usual to see that kind of individual, let's say. So what this means is that with no-code, you can have smaller teams, and each person within the team, the role is slightly different than what it would be in a traditional development. So starting with a developer, a lot of times you don't have the backend and the front end developer, you have one developer. So he has more responsibility over the project, over the product that he's building. And usually he also needs to come, it's good when he comes a step above from just doing execution, but actually thinking about, okay, how to build a product. Because when you have a developer that can do that, it's really beneficial for the project, because it can not only move faster, but it can give a lot of recommendations on how to improve things. Because at the end of the day, that's the person that spends the most hours building it. So I think the developer really has a super important role. In terms of the project management or product management and UX UI design, those roles also are a little bit different, because if we think about the no code, speed is an important factor. So you still need, when you're building an application, like I said, you still need to have the product well done, and design needs to be good. But usually, because you want to do projects faster, those roles also need to adapt and be able to do things faster and in a more agile way, let's say. So for example, a product manager with no code is going to have much less time to think about new features and new things to include, because the new feature is done in a few days, not a few weeks or a few months. So he really needs to always be on top of the game and make sure that, okay, he understands that, yeah, things move faster, and he also needs to move faster. So I think there's a few things that in terms in terms of how the team operates that are intrinsically different, but I would say again the basis of software development are still the same.
Could you provide an example where no code offered a distinct advantage over traditional software development, comparing to the traditional software development?
I would say I see no code really helping two main use cases. So one, internal tools for companies, like usually in a company you want the solution, right? A client is not worried, like a lot of times they don't understand the tech stack or what you're building on. What they want is, okay, I have a problem, it's taking me a lot of time to do this, so I need a digital solution that can solve my problem. So no code is great on that, because the time to value is so much faster that the client gets really happy when they go and ask you, okay, how long will this take to build? And you're like, oh, 4 weeks. While before it would be 3-4 months. So for them, for internal tools, it's amazing, and I think it brings a lot of advantages. And also on another use case, it's really for startups, and especially when you're just starting out, like no code offers you the possibility to really follow the lean startup principles and really validate things at each step of the way. So you can start your startup with a no code landing page and a no code form. You use, for example, card and then type forms, and you literally in 1 hour, 2 hours now with ChatGPT doing a lot of stuff in terms of the copywriting. You can have a business online. You can show it to potential customers and say, hey, what do you think? You can actually have people going through through that, and you can already start interacting with people. And then you can evolve from there, right? You start with a landing page and with a type form, then you can move into Airtable and Softer, then maybe you start building on Bubble, and then if things go well, then okay, you can think about code later. But like at every step of your growth as a startup, you can use different tools of no code to every step of the way validate what you're doing, show actually work, like not show, get users actually interacting with your product, get feedback, and then be more ready for the next step and for the next growth in terms of not only the business but also the technology.
Working with clients, what are the common misconceptions about no code? How you address them?
Yeah, good question. So what we see a lot is, or the question that we see a lot is, how scalable will my application be? And I understand the question. It's very very relevant, and I think that question should always be asked. And as I mentioned in the beginning, is when you're building a project, you need to think, okay, what's the right tech stack for the stage of development of this client, the use case, and what they want to do in the future. So those how can I say, those parameters are always important to reply to this question. But what I usually think with no code is, if you're building the next Airbnb or the next Uber or the next Zalando, you, of course, you're going to reach a point where you're not going to use no code anymore, right? But when that moment comes, it's actually great that you were able to get to that moment by using no code, because you'll be able to get to that moment usually much faster, much cheaper, and with really an ability to pivot and to iterate and to change that are much faster than if you do it in code. So the acceleration that you get towards product to market fit is so great that actually when you get to that point, and if you need to rebuild parts of it, it's not a problem, right? Because you already took advantage of all the benefits that no code gives you. And it's actually interesting on this question when what I do is, okay, let's do the reverse question. Like, what are the, how can I say, the potential drawbacks of using code from the beginning, right? Okay, maybe you're gonna need a bigger team, you're gonna need more development time, it's gonna be more expensive, right? So what will happen is you'll develop an MVP. As always, the MVP won't be perfect, so then you're gonna have to start iterating on it. So to build the MVP, it'll be longer and more expensive, and every iteration that you do, it's gonna be longer and more expensive. Then there's the thing that if you change the code a lot, and let's say in 1 year, 2 years, you have an application, a lot of times you have an application that has what it's called the code spaghetti, right? Because you change so much that, a lot of things are just like, they are glued with a bit of duct tape, and a lot of times that also happens, that it's like, oh, yeah, maybe we need to rebuild this application from scratch because we have product to market fit. Now we know what we need, so let's rebuild it. So, yeah, there's advantages and drawbacks on both sides, but like I really think that if you're starting out and if you're trying to validate an idea, try to get the most validation you can, the fastest you can, and spending the less that you can. And then if you get the validation, worry about scaling when scaling is a problem, right? Until then, you don't know if you're actually going to need, or if you're going to actually hit the limitations of no code. Again, I'm saying this and maybe I'm generalizing. Of course, if someone tells me like, hey, I'm going to build an application that is, I don't know, with the backend on blockchain or a lot of like complex AI, then okay, there's things that are like from the get-go, that are impossible to do. But I would say 80-90% of startups, they actually, or products, they actually are not as complex in terms of tech. They already use, or they are a remix of tech that was being used before. So for those cases, I really think that I understand this question, but I really think that people should think about it in a different way.
What are your predictions for the future of no-code development, no-code movement in the upcoming years? Any trends, upcoming technologies within the no-code sector?
So it's interesting. Last week we actually had an event here in Berlin called the NoCode Club, which Naviu is a founder. Also, there's another agency we work with, 9X. Basically, we created a community where we invite people to tell the success stories of using NoCode, and then we invite people from the tech scene to come and attend. And the idea is just to share knowledge. And it was interesting because this question also is usually something that someone from the audience will ask. And it was fun. Like I had a lot of talks with people there. And one thing that I see more and more is, let's say, traditional developers getting an interest with, okay, what is this? What is this no-code thing? And that aligns a bit with my perspective for the future of no-code. I really think that no-code will be part of the tech stack of the future. So I don't believe that no-code will replace code, but they all both will work together. And I actually think that together they give so many more solutions to entrepreneurs and people that want to build products, that it's really what makes sense. So no code versus code, I think it's something that is gonna disappear, and I think that will also have a good impact for, let's call, the traditional developers, because like this happens so much in for example, in companies. You're in a company, you're from a business department, you need a tool to improve the way that you do a certain process in the company. You talk to IT, IT says, oh, we're so busy, we can only start doing that in 6 months, right? My belief is that with time, and as companies started incorporating these tools, the IT departments, the developers, would also find a lot of pleasure and benefits on working with these tools, because if business needs something being done, they can just, okay, I'll build it, instead of building that with code and taking months to do it. Okay, I have here a tool, a no-code tool that can get you that in days or in weeks. So it will make, how can I say, also the work of traditional developers more enjoyable, right? Because they can just go out and build it, and not every time that there's like simple requests have to go through a very complex process to get something done. So I really see code and no code to walk hand in hand and becoming part of like a bigger tech stack. Apart from that, I also see, in terms of startups, I really think we're gonna, how can I usually say now, if I was a VC, I wouldn't invest in a company that just has a pitch deck, because now the tools are readily available online. Like it's very easy to go online and start building things, start getting users on it, start getting feedback. So I really think that we're gonna go to a point where it's gonna be pitch decks will still be important. It's still important to sell a vision, but more and more you'll see startups going through the path of, okay, I start building, I start also building the business and the product, but they go hand in hand. And when they go to pitch something, they can go and say, hey, this is our idea for the long term, but now we are here. We already built this with this tech stack. We already have this feedback. This is the next things we're building, and this is why we need your investment. And I think when you start doing that, like the confidence that someone that is investing their money on your project can have in you, it's much higher, because you can show that you're already building something. And yeah, I think I would say those are kind of like my main predictions for the future of no code.
What advice would you offer to the developers that are interested in the no-code space? Give one advice on why they should start with no-code and one reason why they might hesitate.
Okay, so my first thing with no code is, like, if you are curious about it, go for it. Every tool has a free plan. It's just just go to the website, you register, you can start using. You go on YouTube, tons of tutorials, so it's very easy to get into and to understand what it is. The advantage, I would say, is the main advantage is that if you're starting as a developer, if you're using no code, like, your time to value will also be much faster, like because you'll be able to be someone that can solve a real problem for someone much faster, because these tools, okay, they have a learning curve, but it's not the same with code. Like with code, it will take you years to be able to create solutions that people can actually use, while with no code, it will take you months to actually create solutions that people can use. So your time to value, it's much faster. So that also means that I feel you'll be able to more quickly start doing things and be hired for the things that you are able to build, and for those skills. Of course, the disadvantage, I think, is that people see no-code developers as, let's say, less of programmers than the ones that work with code. And I understand that in a way, but I would say a no-code developer, like I said before, needs to have a wider skill set, and needs to make sure that he's good on a lot of different areas, because especially when he works alone, he'll be required to to think about product, to think about design, to think about development, and do them all. So I would say the skill set is a little bit different, and I think the more no code grows and is implemented by companies, the more I think this distinction will be blurred. But and I think that I've seen also at our company is that one thing and the other are not. If you do no code, doesn't mean that in the future you can't do code, and the other way around. Like, we have examples in the company of developers that are very good with no code. They started with no code. That all the products that they built in no code, but like the fact that they understood how to build applications just makes it so much easier for them to start learning other, like, programming languages. And now we see a lot of them actually transitioning from working with no code to working with code, and that's beautiful to see, because maybe, let me say, maybe you can also see no code as giving you the foundations of product development, of how to structure applications, how to build them in a more, let's say, easier to grasp and more tangible way. So then when you transition to code, you already have all that structure in your head. You already know how those things work. Now it's just about learning a different language to be able to create it. So I think, yeah, I think that's also a good thing. How can I say? A good path to take. Just as a last note, for example, I talked to in Portugal. There's a lot of people. I'm originally from Portugal, so there's a lot of people that are transitioning from, for example, business careers into coding. And I had a talk with the school the other day and with the students, and I actually told them that it's like, okay, if you're transitioning to from careers, I actually think no code it's a great bet because you can bring your business knowledge, you can bring your background from the industry you were before, and in 6 months to 1 year, you can be already building apps, and you have a great value for the industries that you have experience in, right? Because you know the processes, you know how things work, and now you have the tool or the knowledge to use tools that you can quickly solve those issues and make work at those industries better. So yeah, I think I think those were that would be my how can I say my main advantage and disadvantages on this point. But I think the disadvantage can lead you to how can I say like I said, from no code to code. You can find a way from one to the other. So maybe it's not even a disadvantage, not that much of a disadvantage.